Perfect. So for today, we're going to go over the data reports for SOLARS. I'm currently on the admin panel, and it should look pretty familiar. We have like the admin, participants, reports section, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. My admin panel looks slightly different because I have some additional privileges, but you should also have settings in yours. And you'll have participants, admins, messages, reports, and settings. So for your data reports, I'm currently looking at the stage or testing website that you guys have, not your live website, just so we can play around with the data a little bit more. But on your stage website and on your production website, the information is going to look, the way it's laid out is going to look exactly the same. And the only difference is going to be what data is actually inside the reports. So what I mean by that is because on the test website, we have test data, and you can see that by going to participants and looking at all these participants here. These are all test users, obviously. On your live report, though, your participants are going to be real participants, and so their data is going to be different, and it's going to be your actual study data. So that's the major difference between stage and your live admin panel environment. And with your data reports, we have two separate categories for your data reports. There are your study maintenance reports, which are going to allow you to manage your study. Understand where your participants at in completing, their survey questions and in their e-visit itself. Then you have your study data exports, and your study data exports are going to include participant responses to survey data specifically. So if I click on it, what you'll see is all of your surveys. So these should all look really familiar. You have the COVID-19 health issues, demographics, discrimination. Each survey has a report. And again, the report is going to contain that participant information that participants provide for the survey.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and go back to the study maintenance reports because the study data exports are pretty self-explanatory. So today we're going to spend the majority of the time talking about these study maintenance reports. For the study maintenance reports, really briefly before I jump in and download them and kind of take a look at them, for the study maintenance reports and for the study data exports, I want to just emphasize one really important item, and that is that these reports refresh nightly around 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. So they are not live reports at all. They update once at night and then they're static. And you'll notice this date appended to them. It says today's date, March 24th. All the information from here that's currently contained in the reports was updated yesterday at 5:30 p.m. So all the information that participants may be entering in now is not going to show up until tonight at 5:30 p.m. And when it is added and the reports are updated, the new date will say March 25th, 2021. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Great. So let's go ahead and just start downloading some of these reports so you can get an idea of how they function. They all function pretty much the same way. So we're going to start off with the activity report. And we have the download icon, which I just selected. And the download icon is going to download a CSV of the file. Let's see, where did that downloaded report go? Let's try downloading it one more time.
It looks like your Excel is bouncing.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it's still downloading maybe.
Huh.
It's
really much quicker. It pops up and it's like, here I am.
It knows that you're doing this, so it decides.
Oh man. Okay, let's see. Oh, that is really weird. Okay, here it is. I'm gonna pull it over to my other screen. Okay. So this is what the activity report looks like. And there is a ton of data in here. I think my screen just froze a little. Okay, here we go. So there's a ton of information in this report. And there are a number of columns that we're going to go through. The first thing that I would actually suggest when you download a report, and you should do this for every report in my opinion, is, this is really interesting. I'm not seeing all the normal. Okay, here we are. Is I would add a filter to the columns.
Okay.
So you would just go to sort and filter, and you would just select the filter icon, and that's all.
Okay.
The reason why I add this is because it makes this report much easier to navigate. And this report is most useful when you know what you're looking for. But ultimately, the activity report includes data for each user's activity on the platform for both mobile and web activities. So the report shows which activity, such as an e-visit, task, or survey, and we call surveys tasks in the reports, is pending, expired, in progress, up to date, or completed by each user. It also includes the dates and the percent completed. So again, this report can be used to track each user's progress through the study on a participant level. And what a pending visit means is it's not available to the participant yet.
Okay.
It means it's past the time allotted, so it's expired. In progress means it's self-explanatory. It's in progress. Up to date is up to date, and then complete is complete. So the only one that's kind of trickier is pending, which is it's not available to the participant. Okay, so we have activity type as the first column. Again, the only activities are going to be e-visits and tasks. Tasks are just e-visits, and you can filter if you'd like. We have user ID, that's your Eureka ID. So that's the ID that Eureka gives the participant. E-visit, so for SOLARS, there's only one e-visit. So all of them are going to say e-visit 1. Task name would be the survey name. The status, so we went over that. That's just pending, expired, in progress, up to date, and complete. Percent done, when the activity was created or open or available to the participant, when they started it, when they completed it, when it expires, and then because you guys have coordinator, I think you have coordinator data entry as one of your features. There's also information if the coordinator actually completed the survey on behalf of the participant and if they did, what their ID number is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly show you one way that you can utilize this report. As I mentioned, the best way to utilize it is by tracking a participant's progress. So I'm going to go ahead and select one user. I'm just going to select this random person here. And what we see when I select this one person to kind of hone in on is I can track where this participant is in completing their study surveys for e-visit 1. So again, e-visit 1 is the e-visit that encompasses all of the tasks or surveys. And these are all of the surveys for e-visit 1. So we have basic demographics, health, et cetera, et cetera. This person is currently still completing e-visit 1. And they have started the basic demographics, but it looks like they have not actually begun the health and well-being. It looks like they started discrimination and stressful life events, but the other items are not available to them. So they picked up and they looked into this one, and then they jumped quickly to this one, but they haven't actually completed any of the surveys, which is interesting. And then the survey was created for the participant on the 17th of November, which is quite a while ago. So clearly this person just enrolled into SOLARS, clicked around a little bit, and then left.
Yeah.
You can also use this feature to see how participants are overall doing with their surveys. You can like pick a particular survey that you want to hone in on and find out how participants are progressing through, let's say, like the basic demographic survey. So these are all the people. Let's just find people who are currently working on the basic demographic survey. So these are all the people that are currently working on the basic demographic survey. There are 8, right? Oh, there's 19. There's 19 of them. It looks like none of them have completed any of the surveys. They just like started them or opened them and then closed
You just looked at it. Yeah.
Exactly. They just looked at it and then closed them. You can also look at another status such as expired and see which ones have expired surveys and then which ones actually completed their surveys. Okay. Any questions about activities? I feel like that's...
Yeah, no questions.
Okay, great. In addition to having these data reports, we also have standard statistic reports. And so that's the next one that we're going to look at, this activity stats. What activity stats is a report that shows aggregate statistics for each activity, such as an e-visit, a task, or a survey. Let me go ahead and move the report to my other screen so that we can take a look at it. So again, I'm going to add that filter. I do this every time. Again, it's, in my opinion, the best way to navigate through this because there can be a lot of information at times. But this report shows how many users performed each activity, how many activities are pending, expired, in progress, up to date, or completed. So it's a better way to track how many activities are completed and track the overall progress of the study.
Yeah.
We have e-visit 1, and then we have, again, the surveys that are in e-visit 1. So all the same surveys we've looked at. And then you can see from a high level overview, how many people are still working on e-visit 1 or have like pending e-visits open, how many are expired, how many are in progress, how many are completed, and how many total have opened their e-visit 1. Then you can drill down a little bit further and look at specific surveys. Specific surveys and see like how people are doing on them. So, you know, if there was a survey where everybody is in progress, maybe that shows that it's a challenging survey for a participant. Any questions about the activity stats?
Nope.
Okay.
The nice one.
Perfect. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. We're going to skip over coordinator data entry so I can look at the eligibility. So one thing I want to just mention is that you can see here there are eligibility all, consented all, and that's the same for recruitment. There's recruitment all, consented all. What all means is that it includes users regardless of their consent status. So these are people who may or may not have consented to SOLARS.
Okay.
And what consented only refers to is users who consented at some time. So they consented, but they could have withdrawn at another time. So just something to be mindful of in terms of like how we delineate our reports. I'm going to go ahead and download the eligibility report, which is this one. We'll take a really quick look at this report. And I think that after we go through eligibility, you'll probably have a good sense of how these work, how these maintenance reports work. Okay, so again, as always, I'm going to add my filter. Yep. And so the eligibility report includes data for each user's eligibility questionnaire. And I can expand this a little bit more so it's more readable. Okay. So it'll show how each user answered each eligibility question and whether the eligibility question has been met or condition, excuse me, has been met or not. And so this report can be used to track which users are eligible for your study, and if a user does not meet eligibility criteria, why.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's kind of confusing to look at the eligibility report with everybody included. I'm going to, again, just focus on one user. So let's look at user 18497, which again is their Eureka ID. So these are all the questions in your eligibility questionnaire. And although they're not in order here, they do appear in order on your actual survey, of course. So column C is the questions, column D is the eligibility condition. So this is the condition that they need to meet in order to be eligible. So for this question, they need to select 1, which is yes. For are you 13 years or older, they need to select 1, which is yes as well. So answer option E is just showing what the answer options are to be eligible. In column F shows the answer text, the corresponding answer text to be eligible. And then eligibility met shows, was this condition met, yes or no? 1 is yes, 0 of course is no. And then when they completed this eligibility questionnaire. So what we can see from here is that this participant responded to all of these questions appropriately. So for question, let's just look at line item number, or row number 2. Do you currently live or work or receive care in San Francisco County? They answered yes, and that eligibility condition was met. For the next one, are you 13 years or older? They selected yes, and that eligibility condition was met. For, I'm just going to jump down to number 7, which is a little bit more interesting. Are you serving as a birth surrogate? Their answer text was no, so they selected answer option 2, and so that eligibility condition was met. So ultimately, this person was eligible.
I think what's confusing about this one to me is row 27, the age. It has 0 for GOMET. Why is that? Around age, although it's gonna not be there anymore, but
yeah,
because they said yes, so technically it would be like the GOMET, but it said 0.
Yeah, let's look at another. Let's find somebody who's ineligible really quickly so we can take a look. It might actually be a situation where if they are ineligible, maybe. So there are 2 things that I'm thinking right now. Either 1, it could be that if they are not 13 years or older. Wait, what's the question again? Let's look back at it. I'm going to make sure I'm quoting this right. Too many screens. Okay, give me 1 second. Let's just find the correct screen. Okay. Are you 13 years or older? Oh, sorry. What is your age today, right? That's the question.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, are you 13 years or older? What is your age? Is it?
So the question is, what is your age today? And the eligibility condition is they need to be older than 13.
Okay, so that's why it's 0.
And so
So maybe it's because that question isn't in the eligibility criteria. What's in it is, are you 13 years or older? And they have to say yes. So maybe that's why. Because what is your age today is the follow-up question after they say yes to 13.
I think that there might be, I'm not sure. I would have to look into this one a little bit more to get like an answer as to like why this is 0. I have a couple of suspicions, but I'm not entirely sure if they're correct. But right, as you mentioned, we are removing this question. So
Yeah, oh yeah.
right, it's not a huge deal, but I mean, there are a couple of reasons for why it could be showing up this way. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it's even like worth going into like,
Yeah, I don't think it is because we know we're going to remove it.
yeah, yeah, I agree. But do the rest of the questions make sense?
Yes, they do.
Okay. So like if we looked back at this one participant, do the other, 2 through 13 questions. Do you have any
Yep.
other questions about those?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and exit out of this Excel sheet. And then I'm going to pull up the corresponding statistics report, which is also just going to show like at a high level overview which participants who attempted to join your study were eligible versus ineligible, and this will be a little bit clearer. So that you can understand. So the purpose of this data report is to understand how your eligibility criteria are including or excluding participants in your study. So here we can see that for your first eligibility question, which is asking about age. Sorry, looks like we're running out of time. There are 7 participants who were ineligible, 209 that were eligible, and then 21 that didn't answer. So you can like go through and see specifically on a question by question basis how people responded and which ones were eligible, ineligible, and didn't respond.
Okay. Sorry to ask us about the age question, but technically no one should be ineligible, right? Because they did set up the account. Or
Right.
why would someone be ineligible?
That is exactly correct. And particularly when we remove the question, that won't even be present.
Uh,
Everybody's going to be eligible in terms of their age. But yes, you're right. In this scenario, what probably happened again, because this is a test user environment, is somebody probably like myself or whoever was testing. They went through, they logged in, or they went through like get to the CHOPA feature, and then they went in and like completed the eligibility survey and probably like didn't write or type in that they were 18 or over, like maybe they put 17 or something. So they're
okay.
eligible.
So maybe they were trying to be older and then actually put their real birthday. So it's like an extra.
Yeah, in this situation, it was like an extra. Well, because when you're creating a test user on the test environment, you can actually skip the create an account process entirely by clicking on that get to the CHOPA feature.
Okay.
So in this situation, it actually was the only check. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Great. So the other recruitment report, so the other eligibility reports function the exact same way. And then the recruitment report, just as the name suggests, provides information on your participants' name, contact information, registration date, time, consent date, time, and then if they've withdrawn from participating in SOLARS.
Okay.
User contact report is going to show information about your users, contact information ultimately, and how you could get in contact with them if you chose to. And then the other items that we skipped over are the coordinator data entry. So that's just going to provide information on what your coordinators entered in. And then going back to study data exports really quickly, like I mentioned, this is just going to provide survey data that your participants entered into their survey specifically. And below here, if you can see, that's kind of small, but that is your data dictionary, which will ultimately provide you with the definitions for the question and answers that are in the survey reports themselves. Any questions about data? That kind of wraps up.
No, these all make lots of sense.
Okay, perfect. Great. then that concludes the data reports. Feel free to let me know if, at any time when you're looking at this, if you do have additional questions or concerns or comments. Great. I think we can go ahead and log out of here.